following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Good evening and welcome to the November Operations Committee meeting. We have the mayor sitting in on behalf of Councilwoman Jennifer Robinson. Thank you for joining us today, Mayor. On consent this year, this month we have 9 items. Those will be forwarded on to the next council meeting, and we have 2 items for discussion. The first one being a recycling program options, and Mr. Heck, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Council. On August 22nd, Council directed staff to bring back ideas that might expand our recycling program and potentially increase our diversion rate. The staff report before you identifies 10 different options, and underneath option, there's a recommendation from staff. I would like to say in that body of that staff report, there was one recommendation that staff did make, and that was to eliminate the $1 per month for a second recycling cart fee, and that was in the body of the staff report. However, just to be clear, in the final recommendation from staff, we're requesting council to provide us with direction to bring any of these options, if any of these options, for us to present in the upcoming 2015 budget process. So with that, I'll clarify anything, answer any questions that you may have.
I have a few comments.
Go ahead.
Mr. Smith. So first off, thank you for the very full and well-researched report. I always like getting these kinds of reports back from staff. It just shows how much you all know about your business, and all the information within the report, also comparing us with other municipalities, was great information, so thank you to you and your staff. I have a few comments with respect to some of them, and I know that this was originally a pink slip request from Councilmember Robinson with this information, so I think that as a Operations Council, we can discuss these and then give our recommendations and then either put it up for discussion or let Councilmember Robinson pull it from, if we wanted to put it on consent. I happen to really appreciate the feedback about the $1 extra fee, and I was surprised that I didn't have the largest recycling bin available. I think that there may be some people out there who might not be aware that we offered the different sizes, so I think that's interesting information. One of the things that we've heard multiple times from citizens, and maybe Jack Smith and I even spoke earlier, is that when our brown recycling bin gets full and we still need to put out the trash, we tend to put it in the in the regular trash, which is against what we're really trying to do here, which is to increase recycling and improve our diversion rate. So I like some of these options. I especially like the option of potentially making these larger bins available to some of our citizens. And I also appreciate the information about education and outreach. I think everybody knows that they should be recycling, but when it comes to the day-to-day putting their trash out, they just want to get the trash out of their house and to the curb. So although the education and outreach I thought originally might be a great idea, I happen to agree with staff that putting more money into the education is not going to improve our diversion rate.
Well, on the education thing, I wanted to ask isn't this upcoming year a biannual survey or not?
It is, yep.
And I would like to put some questions on that, which would let us know if we could do education outreach, if that would help. If we could probably have a set of questions. That might, in my opinion, be the best way to go first, least costly option. And if it appeared from those questions that we might reach more people through a program and what might reach them, then that would be the way to go. But I'd like to do the biannual survey first.
And survey them just
to ask all kinds of questions. Do you believe you know all of the recyclable materials? You know, do you throw things in the trash that you know are that are recyclable? Those types of things. Do you read letters sent to you about recycling from the town? Things like that.
I can, if I can, we did. I know Susan and her staff had sent out to all the departments some list of questions, and I know we did add 1 or 2 different questions for that. I don't recall what they were, but we certainly can explore that. But I know the quantity and space of number of questions is limited, but we certainly can explore that further on if it's even too late or what we may or may not be able to add to those survey questions.
Okay. And then the other options, I don't know if you wanted to go over them.
Do you want to go through them one at a time? And
sure. I mean, we just talked about education and outreach. The financial incentives, I totally agree, eliminating the $1 fee. But the other 2 options, I strongly oppose. They're just too expensive, and I don't think that's the direction we want to go. And that is pay as you throw and the recycle bank. I'm not in favor of that. I don't know what you think about those.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm not in favor of either of those. The one other option that was discussed within the report that I like the idea of it, but maybe not the implementation, is increasing the amount of compostable material, but not using a private company. Maybe doing some education about. Well, and I know that staff already does that and the town does that, but increasing the amount of education to our citizens on how they can self-compost. So again, taking out the amount of trash that people are throwing away while still keeping our recycling high will help us get to that 50% as well. Because I know I compost, but you know, it's not for the faint of heart. You know, it's an extra activity, but maybe some people would be interested in knowing that it's not as hard as you think, and they might be willing to make that extra effort.
And again, if I could add, that is part of our program now. I will say we don't do it probably as much as we could and should, but there can be a piece of that with some more of that education, or we can just look at our own staff and resources and look to do a few more. We do a few workshops a year down at Bond Park. I think it was last year or the year before we did have a big compost bin sale at the Operations Center on Dixon Avenue. So we can explore some of those things that would not be a large capital or cost to us at all to get that going, to see what that might bring us.
Yeah, I was glad you all added some of that idea to the report.
Okay, for the record, for people watching, when we went to this program, we went with the 65-gallon cart, right? And did we not have a period of time where you could go up to the 99?
And we still do.
We still, so what is the practice right now if somebody finds that their 65-gallon is too
So
small?
let me share two things. One, all we deliver now is 95 gallons. So we don't even deliver 65s anymore. When we got into the program, we had 18-gallon bins weekly. So twice a month, every other week, that was 36 gallons. So we thought 65 would be sufficient. And it was, and it is. But I think over time, we've added materials to the program. And we've come to learn as well that people wanted to upsize their carts. So we have 7,000 citizens or homeowners now that have the larger cart. All you have to do is call and ask, and we bring it out to you.
And there's no
no
additional,
No fee.
that's exactly what I was going to
Do you take the old 65?
That's why we have a lot of them over at Dixon Avenue.
Okay,
sitting
you'll
over
be
there.
getting a call from me.
Now, again, the way it's written in the staff report, and I say this cautiously, we don't highly publicize that, as there's a little fear there. If 40,000 people called tomorrow and said, bring me a larger cart, because you'd be looking at the number in the staff report if we had to swap out, well, I think it was like 34,000 remaining 65s on the street. But again, to answer your question, Mr. Smith, if someone wants to upsize now, you just call, we swap it out for you, and that's all it is.
Well, from my perspective, I don't want the zeal to be meeting a number. I really don't care about the number being 50%, unless it happens in what I call a natural way. So in my mind, I just don't want to over-prescribe. I don't want all of a sudden us to say, let's just all have 95s, because some people are full. There's a lot of small families. There's some. When I think of, my situation, it's usually situational, holiday time or something like that. But when you're just two people in a family, you probably get by with 65. So I don't want to incur a cost so that we all go to that. And I think as long as people are aware that the program exists, I think that's just natural. Some things I don't think you just have to.
I totally agree, and the price tag on that would be well over $1 million, close to $2. And
If we
that's
just
too
did it all.
expensive, yeah.
Right.
Not everybody needs it.
I totally agree with that, and so I would not be in favor of that, or in favor of service level changes to once a week. That would be too expensive as well.
Now, I know that I've been to communities that have aggressive composting thing. Do we have any issues with homeowners associations with that? Is there anything associated with, another one of those unintended consequences? I don't want to, create things and then all of a sudden you.
Yeah, actually, in our ordinance, there is a setback, or how close a compost bin can be to a structure of a house. In my 13 years, I've had one time where a homeowner complained about their neighbor's compost bin, which was kind of,
And it was huge.
it was sticky to resolve too. It was awkward, but so no, we really don't.
That's the exception, the
Yeah,
rare
very much
exception
so,
to
very
that.
much.
Yeah. Have we had any issues with critters, with composting?
Not to my knowledge.
No, yeah.
Snakes, I bet.
So where do we go? I mean, what's the recommendation?
My recommendation would be to see what we can get in the biennial survey, to see what information, educational outreach at a future day, go along with staff recommendation for the eliminating the $1 monthly fee. And I think that's it as far as the recommendations here. And of course, send it for discussion so Councilmember Robinson can give her input.
Yeah, the only additional one that I would love to know is perhaps staff could add to the report information about composting education programs. That would be helpful just to add to the report, since you mentioned it here as well. And I do want one of those larger bins, Mr. Hack.
I think
Put me on the list too.
Yeah. And again, I think a lot of times with the educational, the information, we don't have to spend a lot to elaborate on that. We just have to make sure that people know where to go look. That's why we have a website. I'd be okay with that. I'm okay with the dollar, because, going through the process of the budget and everything else. And the only question I have about using the survey is, with all due respect, if I get a question that says, do you know what to put in your brown bin? My answer is going to be yes, because I don't.
You don't want to be wrong.
Do you know all of the things?
I think we just have
You
to
don't
put a
know what
little
you
bit
don't
of
know.
thought to the questions as we go
Well, I
forward.
think Susan, I can get with Susan next week and certainly have her think through that.
Or you can pick specific things that were added recently.
Or maybe it could even be, I know that they're having so much fun with social media now. Maybe it could be just an extra online survey or quiz, hey, take the recycling survey and
actually
check
fun.
your message, check whether or not you know as much as you think you know.
Make a game out of it.
Oh, actually,
Gamify
obviously,
it.
on our Spruce Facebook page just last week, we had a question of some sort like that, I don't remember what it was, but win this free T-shirt or something.
Yes.
If you,
Oh,
and it was
people
some
will
kind of
do anything
recycling
for a
question like
T-shirt.
that. I don't remember what it was.
I know I'll do anything for a T-shirt.
Are we moving forward with a recommendation of these items that we just said, but we'll leave it for discussion for Jennifer?
Yes, I think
So
that's-
I think,
We're in agreement. Yep.
I'm trying to remember what were the
Eliminate the
Eliminate the-
$1 fee.
Yeah.
Look at, add information to the staff report
Composting
about
Composting.
composting, and explore biannual survey
Right.
questions for future educational outreach. is
So
what I
we'll
did.
use that as the opening at the meeting, and I'll let you do a summary there, and then we'll leave it for Councilwoman
Perfect.
Ms. Jennifer to share her comments. All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, since I don't know how to make this computer work, hold on a minute. So next we have organizational restructuring, and Mr. Shiver, you're going to give us that update, correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the past year or so, I've had a number of conversations with council as well as internally with the staff about ways that the town could develop some very high-level service standards over and above what I believe is excellent service we provide today, and also to look at creating ways to free more time for the manager to spend with the council in approaching our work in a more strategic way. I believe right now the way we are organized and the demands on my time, as well as the staff, prohibits me from being able to have that time to share and work with council in order to look at more strategic ways of approaching our work. So this led to an extensive review that I undertook of the current town organization, and as a result, I am proposing to make organizational changes to improve overall customer service to citizens and to improve responsiveness to council, and at the same time hope to free a great deal of my time as well as the key management team's time, staff, to be able to work with council on more strategic issues. Some of the issues that we do face today, while we have excellent customer service, there are some what I might call bumps in the road with how we are currently organized and carry out our work and how smooth that is for us in delivering customer service. As I have reported before, I believe that we have a very flat organization that was originally established a number of years ago, back in the late 80s, early 90s. That has served us very well. But as we have grown, since that time, our population has roughly tripled. And along with that, the communications and interactions with citizens and other actors that we have to engage with has grown tremendously. The volume of our work has grown extensively, and of course regulations. As we've grown as a city and established more programs have grown, as well as with external groups that we work with. So regulations are greater upon us from outside organizations, and internally we have more. So this has created a lot of increased complexity that has led to some problems with internal communication, coordination, and problem resolution, primarily because many of the processes that we operate span over multiple departments, and in a flat organization and the complexity that I spoke about, it becomes difficult to be as effective and efficient as you can be. So we took a very focused look at the organization and developed what we thought would be some very specific goals for the organization to meet in terms of addressing improved service to our citizens and to the council. So this new organizational structure would have these 4 primary focuses. It's not exhaustive, but lists the most important ones. A focus on customer service, which includes ensuring better coordinated responses to citizens and council, quicker and more thorough follow-through to council as well as citizens, and also there are great benefits internally with that as we do our work. The second goal is strengthen organization-wide strategic focus, as I spoke about a moment ago. Third, to provide better accountability through better defined roles, responsibilities, and lines of authority. And lastly, to allow more timely decision-making. So those are our goals to address the issues and carry us forward to the highest level of customer service we believe we can have. In order to do this, the new structure organizes the town operations into 3 functional areas. So basically what we have done is taking existing departments, functions, tasks, activities, and kind of group them into 3 broad areas. These are illustrated in the staff report, and they are a development services function, an infrastructure function, and a public safety and operations function. Under this proposed reorganization, the current assistant town manager position would be renamed to deputy town manager and would be the primary go-to person in my absence. And this person would also have responsibility over public safety and operations. And this position would be filled by Mike Bajorek. The current assistant town manager. 2 new assistant town manager positions are proposed to be created that will have responsibility for the development services and infrastructure functions. And it is important to note, and I've really emphasized this in the organization, that these functional areas are not large departments, but rather grouping of departments into these 3 areas. That's important to know because the departments, again, as they will be constituted, and there are a few changes to that, will be the primary ones carrying out our day-to-day work with the assistant managers in a coordinating and overall management role. Within the staff report, you'll note there is more detail about each of these areas, and I'll let council take a look at those. If you've not read them, to look at those in a little more detail if you so desire. In order to implement these changes, or at least part of the total of the overall reorganization, several grade and title changes to exempt positions are required that are listed in the chart we labeled Chart 2 in the staff report. And it's required by our ordinances. Any grade increase to exempt positions must be approved by the town council. And finally, just a word about the implementation schedule. We expect, if council approves the staff report and the new positions, we will then begin to functionally align the organization immediately. So there'll be some changes that will happen right away in order to implement things. We will be working with the department directors, each of the new assistants, and myself, and their staffs below in order to shape the detail of how each of those functional areas will look and and how the arrangements will look for each of the departments underneath that. That will likely continue through the spring of next year. And in the spring, perhaps, not exactly sure when, but sometime in the spring or perhaps early summer, I expect that we will be operating under this organizational plan. Now, while I believe all of this is good news, the really, really good news is that the organizational structure that we present and that we will implement in detail over the next year will not require any additional funds for positions or for personnel or salaries. In order to do this, we've been able to take vacant positions, positions that were approved by the council in the current fiscal year, and just kind of shake all those up and swirl them around and realign them in the ways that I have just described, and so we will not have any additional personnel costs as a result of that. So I'm very proud that we're able to make some very significant changes without additional cost in personnel, at least in salaries. There will be some cost for space changes that we'll need in order to relocate and rework some offices. So a part of the recommendation will be some funding in order to accomplish that. And finally, then, the staff recommendation, my recommendation to you is that you approve the grade and title changes to the exempt positions listed in Chart 2, and also that council approve an appropriation of $35,000 from the general fund balance to address the work space needs within the town manager's office, and authorize the town manager to transfer dollars between funds for the purpose of implementing the organizational changes. The $35,000 for space need changes will primarily be located in the manager's office in what we used to call Old Building A on this side of Town Hall campus to address office space changes that need to be done first part of the changes that we make. Further space changes will probably come along later, well, actually at the beginning of next fiscal year. We're now looking at those costs and trying to determine exactly what that will be. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report, and we'll answer any questions council may have.
That was a very good report. Comments?
There was a note within the staff report, Mr. Shiver, about the request for 2 new call centers.
Yes.
Is there a cost associated with that, or is that included in the $35,000, or what can you speak to that?
Yeah, let me ask Mr. Bajork to answer that. He's been looking at the call center arrangement. That's a piece we don't have every detail worked out at this point. 2 of them at least will remain, the 911 center calls, and also the water billing utilities will remain, because that's such a large one, and I'll ask Mike to talk about the other 2.
As the town manager stated, we're still kind of ironing out what that is. 2 key pieces of software have been already approved in the budget, one being the One Solution. That would be hoping to coordinate our planning functions a little better, and then customer relations software that will be in the process of implementing. We need to get that in place and working, and then start looking to see how we can best pull people together and focus citizens to particular numbers so that they can get information, one call, get the information, and go from there. So this is still that's still a work in process in terms of how that'll work, and but we need to get the software in place first.
So would we expect to see a cost associated with the 2 new call centers sometime later?
If there will be a cost, that once we know exactly what will need to be done, and if there is a cost associated with that, we'll be bringing that to you as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's an excellent idea. This wasn't done overnight. It's been in the planning for a long time, and even though we're known for excellent customer service, I think this will take us to the next level. So I'm behind this 100%. I think it's great.
Yeah, I can only add to that comment that this has been a very deliberative process, very it was, interactive in the sense that I appreciate you keeping the council involved, getting our feedback. Life is just getting complicated. No matter how much we try to keep it simple here, between legal changes, the upheaval of our ordinances, you know, from evolving legal decisions and all the other stuff that we have to do, that just creates chaos. You could argue organized chaos, but it's chaos, and that affects customer service. So aligning functionally, trying to be more flexible afoot, you know, dealing with issues and getting back to people, I think those are all things to be applauded, and it's time to do. Like you said, this has changed. We've been organized this way since we were in the 20,000s, and now we're in almost 150,000. So I think we'll move this forward on consent.
The only comment I would have about that is when you're reading the consent items at the beginning of the meeting, if you'll read a couple extra sentences about this, especially about how it improves customer service and it doesn't cost more. I think those are important.
Okay.
If we make those points, then I don't see any other reason to take it off consent.
That's fair. And so when we get, it'll go through on consent, but at the time of the meeting where we talk about operations, I think that would be, just bring that up and we'll have that conversation. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Because we're going to also then be talking a little bit about the previous item, so it'll be a natural time to do that. But we will move it forward on consent, and I'll just bring that up. Okay. Are there any other matters before us? That concludes the November Operations Committee meeting. Thank you.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.